Welcome back. So, if you were with us at the end of the last episode, you probably remember that creeping, just undeniable discomfort we were feeling. We basically hit a tipping point. On the outside, everything looked perfectly fine. We were busy, we were moving, we were totally committed. But internally, this quiet discomfort had really taken root. The money just wasn't matching the sheer amount of effort we were putting in. We realized our entire operation was running on, well, probably. It was this incredibly dangerous game of assumptions. We weren't running a solid business system, we were literally just moving. And once you see that truth, you absolutely cannot unsee it. We had two options staring right at us. Ignore it and just blindly keep moving forward, or stop everything and finally figure it out. We chose to figure it out. Which brings us to episode 5, the day we tried to calculate our profit. We decided it was time to just face the music. We had one singular goal: find out exactly how much we were making. To really grasp the gravity of this, let's just do a super quick recap of our journey so far. In phase 1, we had this big idea, right? Produce a daily consumable. Phase 2, we actually got real training to make a standardized product. Then we hit phase 3, the setup, buying mixers, making those exhilarating first sales. But then phase 4 kind of crept in, the doubt. Our activity level was sky high, but our clarity was basically zero, which led us directly to this exact moment.
So at the end of the production day, we sat down. The space was dead quiet. It was literally just us, a pen, some paper, and a calculator. The mission felt totally straightforward. We literally told ourselves, okay, let's calculate today's profit. It sounded so incredibly simple in our heads. No more assumptions. We were finally going to just do the simple math and establish that control we've been desperately lacking. And honestly, our plan was super logical. Step 1, tally up the total sales for the day. Step 2, subtract the raw material costs. So we started with the sales. We counted the cash, we checked the bank transfers. That part, that felt easy. Or at the very least, it felt familiar, Seeing the actual revenue gave us a quick burst of that old confidence. Then we moved on to step 2, the costs. We started listing out exactly what went into the day's production. Flour, sugar, eggs, oil. These were the totally obvious ingredients, right? The things you physically hold in your hands and pour into the mixer. We confidently wrote them all down on our little piece of paper and added everything up. We were looking at our calculator, feeling honestly pretty good about the little formula we were building. We were literally just about to finalize our neat little equation when someone in the room asked a question. Hey, what about gas? Well, we paused. We completely hadn't written that down. I mean, it wasn't an ingredient you physically mix in a bowl, but obviously we couldn't have baked a single thing without it. And just like that, suddenly the math didn't feel so simple anymore. Before we could even begin to process how to, calculate a fraction of a gas cylinder, another voice chimed in. And electricity? Just another heavy, super uncomfortable pause filled the room. How much electricity did the mixers use today? What did keeping the lights on cost? One by one, these totally invisible costs were just absolutely shattering our simple equation.
And guys, it got worse. The questions started coming faster. Wait, what about the items that got burnt? What about the samples we just gave out for free? What about the stock that didn't even sell and is just sitting there? We began to realize the sheer massive volume of uncounted items. These were everyday losses completely invisible on our nice little balance sheet that we hadn't even thought to factor in. A completely horrifying shift happened in that room right then. We looked down at our pen and our calculator and realized we were no longer doing math. Actually, scratch that, we weren't calculating at all anymore. We were trying to remember. We were desperately trying to piece together the events of a chaotic production day purely from our heads. And memory, especially when you're running a business, is highly, highly unreliable. We were just firing off a barrage of basic questions trying to piece it all together. How many did we actually produce today? Wait, how many were sold? How many are literally left over there on the rack right now? These were the absolutely most fundamental questions of our entire operation, and we suddenly had zero clear answers for them. All we had were incredibly dangerous estimates. We would throw out a number, kind of argue about it, change it, and then try to plug it back into the calculator. The numbers started to drift. Then they fully disconnected from reality. Then they just completely lost meaning. At some point, we just stopped. And not because we were finished with our task either. We stopped because we physically couldn't continue. The data simply was not there. I can't even tell you how deeply uncomfortable that moment was. Because for the first time since we started this entire journey, we saw it with absolute clarity. We didn't know our profit. Not approximately.
not roughly, not even close. There was this massive, glaring gap between what we felt we knew and what we actually knew. We literally only felt like we were in control because we were busy making sales. That feeling of control, that totally false sense of security, we finally realized it was built entirely on assumptions, on totally flawed memory, and on scattered bits of information. We'd spent so much time and money learning how to bake the perfect product, but we'd entirely skipped building a mechanism to track what that product was actually doing for us financially. Assumptions, memory, scattered information. Look, that is not a system. That is risk. Pure, unadulterated risk. We were operating completely blind, basically just crossing our fingers and hoping that at the end of the month, there would magically be more money in the bank account than when we started. And in that totally silent room, something shifted from just mere confusion to deep, sinking concern. Because think about it, this wasn't just about one day's numbers. If we couldn't accurately calculate our profit for just one single day of production, how many days had we been operating exactly like this? And the natural, absolutely terrifying follow-up question just hung heavy in the air. How much had we already lost without even knowing it? A little loss here, a little waste there, an uncounted burnt batch, a slight underpricing because we completely forgot to calculate the gas. Individually, they seem so incredibly small, but repeated daily, they create massive, massive exposure. That question just stayed with us, and the chilling truth is, we were about to get our answer. Not from sitting around theorizing, not from some abstract business analysis. No, we were about to find out the true, hard cost of our negligence from a very real mistake we didn't even realize we were making. A small oversight repeated daily until it became something dangerously big. A hidden error was quietly, steadily draining us, and it was about to surface in the form of this exact number: 39,000 naira. That was the immediate, devastating financial consequence of operating without a real system. And the crazy part? It was just the beginning of what we were about to uncover. So how exactly did a small daily oversight turn into a 39,000 naira blind spot? And far more importantly, how did we finally catch it before it completely took down the entire business? Well, that is exactly what we're going to break down for you next time. You absolutely do not want to miss the revelation in our next episode, the 39,000 naira mistake we didn't see coming. If you're finding value in our journey here, please make sure to like this, share it with someone who really needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel so you're instantly notified when the next episode drops. Until then, take a really hard look at your own numbers and ask yourself, are you running a system or are you just running on assumptions? We'll see you next time.